Let's go make a killing.
All right.
Welcome to the Las Vegas Football Contest Show.
10 to the 5 to the 4, play one, touchdown!
The sharpest football contest show in the land.
I'll take the action. My Birds, Benjamin Franklin's team, favored by 1.5 points. I'll give you 3 more.
You're now riding shotgun with 2 former contest winners in Brady Kannon and James Salinas. And getting a former player's perspective with 9-year NFL veteran Mike Pritchard.
Let's go!
As they guide you through strategy, process, and your contest picks each and every week of the season.
I do like the idea of a parlay.
Now here's your host, Brady Kannon.
Welcome in, everybody, and welcome back. It is the Las Vegas Football Contest Show presented by Circa Sports and Westgate Las Vegas Superbook. Week 9 in the NFL is upon us, and Mike Pritchard is sans the Football Contest Show for one more week. Thanks again to Kelly Stewart for filling in admirably for Mr. Pritchard last week. We had a good week. James Salinas is here, of course, as usual. And James, without Mr. Pritchard and Kelly filling in, we had a pretty good week. Went 3-2 in the Circa contest and 4-1 in the Westgate SuperContest. I'll give the lay of the land here as far as what went down in week 8. The consensus in the SuperContest went 2-3. The SuperContest now 16-23-1 on the season. And then in Circa Sports Million, the consensus also went 2-3. The total mark there at 16-24. And again, if all you're doing is waking up on Sunday morning and fading the consensus in these contests, you are hitting 59% of your plays. Whereas where we stand in the Super Contest, we're doing okay. It's not time to go crazy just yet. We are a game above 500 and in the top half of the standings in the Super Contest. Now, not so good in the Circa Sports Million. We are 4 games below 500 and in the bottom half of the standings. So we'll see. Maybe week 10, we start to change our strategy in Circa Sports Million. Circa Survivor, not a whole lot of carnage. And, you know, James, you've talked about it before, how the month of October has not been a successful month of for you traditionally. The books got hammered in the month of October. A lot of favorites came through. You and I typically underdog players. Well, that makes sense. Circa Survivor, the favorites coming through leads to not a whole lot of carnage. And that was the case again in week 8. Only 23 entries eliminated. You have 191 now remaining. Your inherent value of that ticket you purchased over the summer is worth now nearly $75,000. And a little reminder, only 5 weeks left until Thanksgiving. That certainly is looming. 4 games, a separate week there for the first of the 2 holidays, a part of the Circa Survivor contest. All right, Mr. Salinas, it's just the 2 of us here today. Let's dive in. We'll start at the top of the board. What are you looking at this week?
Well, I'll just start right at the top of the contest card. And looking at the numbers here, we do have a few discrepancies between the Super Contest lines that come out on Wednesday afternoon/evening and versus the Circa Million lines, which come out on Thursday morning. First game on the board is the Tennessee Titans as a home favorite. They're actually a favorite. Home, way on the road, across the country, across the pond, wherever. How the hell are the Titans a favorite over anybody? Well, I guess you're looking at the Patriots as their opponent, being the underdog in this spot. It's 3.5 are the Titans favored in the Super Contest. They are favored by 3 in the Circa Millions. And usually, Brady, we've talked about it. When I look at the card, I look at the game and I see if I can make a case for either side. And if I can make a case for both sides, I typically move on from this. Right now, the Tennessee Titans, when I look at them, I don't know if there's ever going to be a time going forward. It definitely didn't happen last week. They were already done. I was already done with Will Levis and the Tennessee Titans a couple of weeks back. Looking at this now, I don't think there's ever going to be a time where I can look at this Titans team, regardless of whether they're a favorite or a dog, and say, this is a team that I want to get sided with. So I'm more inclined to look at the Patriots from this perspective as the underdog, especially at the 3.5 number with the Super Contest, getting over that key number of 3 with a field goal. And I think the hard part right now, it's Friday afternoon as we talk. We don't know the status of Drake May, the rookie quarterback for the New England Patriots. I think that's what's keeping me off this game. If it's Brissett, I mean, I can throw the ball further underhand than it seems like he can throw the ball overhand. It does not push the ball down the field, Brady, and it just makes it really tough right now. Not knowing the status of Drake May, which I think has really lifted the ceiling of the offense for the New England Patriots, the few games that he actually has been on the field. We had them last week against the Jets, and we actually had to have Brissett come in and save us, and it wasn't really him saving us, right, Brady? It was more so the defense making plays, special teams making plays for the Patriots, rolling off that big win at home against the New York Jets. I lean towards the Patriots here, but without knowing where the status of Drake May is, I don't know if this is going to make my card.
Yeah, I don't like the unknown on Drake May either. And I'm with you that I have been somewhat impressed by the kid. I think he definitely gives this offense more potential. And Jacoby Brissett was a great backup, and I think he's okay in that role. I don't think he's great in the starter role. What I worry about here, and you know how we've been through it with the Titans. I mean, we were on them week one, like a lot of people, in a game that they absolutely should have beaten the Bears. We were on them a couple other times. We were on them a couple weeks ago when they broke out to a 10-0 lead over the Buffalo Bills. They just find ways to blow it. And so I am so done with this team. I would be with you leaning towards New England here, especially in the contest getting 3.5. But I worry about, recency bias. People seeing what the Patriots did last week to the Jets. Oh my gosh, this Patriots team, they're rolling. And the Titans, they got absolutely smashed by the Lions. I'm going to, fade them like crazy this week. I worry about that most recent reaction taking place and having influence on the betting market in this game. So, a few reasons on this one, James, why I think you and I are going to agree to stay away. One that I think you and I both like is in the AFC East, the Buffalo Bills. Of course, not too worried about the New England Patriots in that division are the Bills. The Bills, to me, we went on one of our cards, we went with Seattle last week because it looked like a scheduling spot that was going to be very difficult for Buffalo, playing a lot of games on the road, primetime, what have you. They absolutely cleaned house with Seattle in a tough spot on the road. Now they return home, a division game against the Dolphins, a team that they have owned as of late. I think this Buffalo team is pretty strong, and I actually made a futures bet on them to contend for the Super Bowl here in a few months from now. But when I crunch the numbers, all the stats and what have you, and these are heavily influenced without Tua, but it didn't seem to make a difference with Tua last week. They lost to the Arizona Cardinals. When I crunch the numbers, I come to the Buffalo Bills in this contest, James, by 10.
Well, 2 scores right there, even sitting here at 6, and it's 6 in both these contests. I rarely lay the number. I like to lay a number here with the Buffalo Bills playing at home against Miami. This is their opportunity to really get a stranglehold on that division in the AFC East, not only on the division, but continue to climb themselves up the standings when it comes to the conference and where they're going to sit within the conference. I know they do not have the tiebreaker against the Baltimore Ravens since they lost that game back in week 3 or 4, I believe, on Sunday night in Baltimore. And they do have a game against Kansas City coming up in a few weeks. But I think right here, the focus clearly will be on taking care of business in the AFC East. Miami is a fragile team. It's a beat-up team. We know Tua. There was a lot of love for Miami last week, Brady, with Tua coming back. And, what was my question was going to be, with all the concussions and the injuries that he suffered, and I hate that it's not a pun here, but where was his mindset? Where was his head going to be going into that game against Arizona? And he doesn't look anywhere close to himself from that psychological standpoint, and really a shame for Tua, who I think is somebody with good character that at least for me, that I root for to make plays and perform well in the NFL. I think in this spot here, this is a really bad spot for Miami to have to go up there. To me, it felt short. You said your numbers are 10. I'm not one to really crunch a whole lot of numbers, but if that was the number, it feels short sitting here at 6. I'm down with both contests. We'll lay the favorite here at home with the Buffalo Bills in both those plays.
I wonder how popular the pick will be in the contest. I think in the general betting market, you think it'll be popular, and you hate to kind of be, with the most popular selection, but I think the Bills will be a very popular bet, and I just hope we're right here. I think the majority of the people will be laying the points with the favorite here, but I have felt the Dolphins were a bad team for a long time now, and I think they still are. And obviously, Tua didn't help a whole lot. Stick around. We'll be right back on the Las Vegas Football Contest Show.
Steiner's, a Nevada-style pub, invites you to play the best keno and video poker in Las Vegas. Promos are how we roll, so make the most of your gaming dollars with ongoing promotions, daily free play, bonuses, and more. With a chance to win Knights, Raiders, Aviators tickets, and big money with all those jackpots. It's not only great gaming at Steiner's, it's the 24 awesome rotating draft beers and the best appetizers to match. Steiner's, the Nevada-style pub, with 3 locations across the Vegas Valley. Steiner's, I love this place.
Welcome back to the Las Vegas Football Contest Show. Brady Kannon and James Salinas with you. Week 9 of the NFL, the midway point of the NFL season, and batting about 500 in these contests. Time to make a move, and that's usually when Mr. Salinas makes his move, is when the calendar flips to November. So I've got my fingers crossed here. We want to move to a game that I think is a pretty interesting contest, the second straight game on the road for the Dallas Cowboys, visiting the Atlanta Falcons. Atlanta on top in that NFC South division. The Cowboys, they were a play for us in one of the contests last week. Felt it was a good situation for them coming out of the bye. Time to get right and, give the 49ers a run for their money. Well, they did for half the game, and then they were the Dallas Cowboys again, and they absolutely just got annihilated in the second half of that game. I don't think I want to go back to the well with Dallas anytime soon. Micah Parsons still out for this game. Obviously, a big part of that defense that's really been a problem area for the Dallas Cowboys this year. I like the Falcons, James. We've been on them a couple of times successfully, but they're kind of they're fickle as well. You don't know when they're going to lay an egg. We saw them do that a couple of weeks ago against the Seattle Seahawks. Now, personally, I think I prefer the Falcons side here. Very interesting. They're laying less than a field goal, an attractive number in the Super Contest at 2.5. It's 3 in the Circa Sports Million. I see the Falcons probably being a very popular pick in the Super Contest, James.
Well, and thinking about this matchup, you talked about Parsons being out again with his ankle. Most likely Trayvon Diggs. He's a game time decision, did not practice all week with a calf injury. To me, I think he's probably not going to play either. And when you're missing a few of your stars on the defensive side against an Atlanta team, when they're in their groove and they're finding their running game and then opening up the passing game for Kirk Cousins, I mean, that offense has the potential, and I'll leave it at potential. We've seen games where they have absolutely lit teams up, and we've seen other games they're always playing behind the sticks, and it's just the team I just don't trust right now, Atlanta Falcons, and maybe it's still a little PTSD from when we took the Falcons back a few weeks ago when they played the Seattle Seahawks, and the Seattle Seahawks were not playing well, and then they look like the best team in football. I feel like this is just kind of one of those teams that they're front runners, and Atlanta to me is when things are going well, they get the momentum going, the ball's bouncing their way, they have the ability to throttle teams, and we saw that last week in the second half in a big division win over the Tampa Bay Bucks. But there also seem to be this fragile team sometimes where if things don't go their way, they missed the field goal in that game a couple of weeks back against the Seattle Seahawks when they were the favorite. Maybe that's probably my bigger piece is when the Falcons are playing in that favorite role. And again, it's a small, like you talked about it, Brady, in the Super Contest, it's only 2.5. That's a small favorite in the sense where almost a coin flip. But I know we were leaning towards that way, and I know your side is with the Falcons leaning that side too, but I just not ready to get on the Falcons side. I didn't want anything to do with the Cow Pies here. They definitely look like Cow Pies in the second half of that game against San Francisco. They got pushed around. I think that was the biggest disappointment was on the offensive line, they got pushed around. Defensively, they couldn't stop the run. And we know Atlanta has the ability when they commit to it to running the football, which really opens up the pass game for Kirk Cousins. But I'm not ready to go there. I can't do it. I think there's plenty of other games on the board, Brady, that I think we can find a winner with. And the Falcons are just not a team that I trust right now as a favorite in this spot.
Well, I tell you, one of the games that jumped out to me early this week, and I think this point spread is off. The Denver Broncos getting 9.5 points, and it came back down to 9. Maybe that was with some of the uncertainty about Lamar Jackson's status. He was at practice today. Looks like he's going to be fine. I never felt that there was a threat of him not playing. And now the number in the contest is 9. Live market, it's back up to 9.5. But I really think this number ought to be closer to like 4 to 6. And I don't think you can get rich in the industry of sports betting laying big numbers like this with a team that has a lousy defense. Now, the Baltimore Ravens are very good against the run, but they are the worst defense in the NFL against the pass. And we saw Jameis Winston light them up last week. We've seen this team allow teams to hang around, like the Las Vegas Raiders. Also, the scheduling spot caught my eye early this week. They have a Thursday night game on deck. I think teams, and I have to check the numbers, but I think teams that have that short week coming up, face a little bit of distraction and tend to not do so well in that game leading up to that Thursday night game. And oh, by the way, it's a division sandwich for them. They come off of Cleveland. Now here they play Denver, and that Thursday night game next week, they take on Cincinnati. I just think this is a bad spot for the Baltimore Ravens all the way around. And, a lot of people out there, they're going to bounce back after the loss. Now, I'm not buying it. I don't want to lay points with a bad defense in a bad scheduling spot. Give me a solid, healthy team in the Denver Broncos.
Well, and a physical team, Brady. I think that's what we've seen. That's what's been on the defensive side for the Broncos. I think that's what I've been most impressed with is just the aggressiveness that we see at the line of scrimmage, the different fronts that DC Joseph is putting out there, and the physicality that they are bringing on the defensive side, really applying pressure on the quarterback, being very physical against the run. Nothing comes to mind sooner than a few weeks back when they went to New York and played the New York Jets, and how physically dominant they were over that Jets offense up front. Now, I know it's a completely different offense here with Lamar Jackson. I'll take Lamar Jackson any day with that Ravens offense versus what we've seen out of the New York Jets last night on Thursday night, notwithstanding. But I agree. This number sitting there at 9 in both these contests, I like the number here too. I'll take the Broncos. If it was 7, I'd be taking the Broncos here. So taking the 9 in this spot, not only from the Broncos perspective, they're coming in, they're playing extremely confident. I know with Bo Nix, it's not a passing game. You talked about the pass defense for the Ravens being suspect. I don't know if that's a matchup that favors the Broncos with Bo Nix at this point, but from a physicality standpoint, because I think with the Ravens, you mentioned the scheduling spot, and not only where they've been and the games that they're coming off of, really a bruising game last week against Cleveland. But if you look at their schedule going forward, you mentioned Thursday having that division game against the Cincinnati Bengals, but also following that, they have a game at Pittsburgh, at the Chargers, and then Philadelphia Eagles. They host Philadelphia before their bye in week 14. So that is a hell of a long stretch that they're going through. So I think it's, we hear it in the NBA, and I'm not saying that there's load management, but we saw load management with the lack of practice for Lamar Jackson this week, knowing not only the games that they've played, but also I think the games that are coming up, not only Thursday, but beyond. That's a hell of a long stretch. I mean, the bye week is week 14. The hell, it may as well be next week and run it into January. They need that bye during the first week of the playoffs to get a bye week. That is just a hell of a schedule. So I think there's some load management going on from a practice perspective. A Broncos team healthy, being physical, that's excited about it. I like the Broncos in the spot plus the 9.
We'll be back in just a moment. Stick around.
Want to enter the biggest and best football contests in Las Vegas, but don't know where to start? Look no further than footballcontest.com to get the info you need to succeed in the biggest football contests in the world. Circa Million, Circa Survivor, and the Westgate SuperContest. Reserve the most trusted proxy service in the business now at footballcontest.com. Maddie and Tony have been leaders in the industry for 15 years. They submit your picks while you focus on picking winners. Experience matters. Go with the pros at footballcontest.com and start winning now.
Back here inside the Las Vegas Football Contest show presented by Circa Sports and Westgate Las Vegas Superbook. Brady Kannon and James Salinas with you, continuing to break down the Week 9 NFL card from an against the spread perspective. We'll take a look at Circa Survivor in the segment coming up, but more games to get to here. And we start with the Cincinnati Bengals hosting the Las Vegas Raiders. Cincinnati coming off of a loss to the Philadelphia Eagles. The Raiders coming off of a loss themselves to the Kansas City Chiefs. And this is another game very similar to the Baltimore game, James, for a couple of reasons. First of all, I felt the number was out of whack. Second of all, I don't want to lay a big number with a team that has a lousy defense. And third of all, they've got a Thursday night game on deck. And like I said, I don't think these teams really do too well against the spread when they have that short week coming up. It seems to weigh on their mind. Cincinnati, boy, they've got a lot of issues. T. Higgins is doubtful for this game. Zach Moss is doubtful for this game. You know, you look at this team and say, oh, maybe the defense is improving. They had a good game against the Cleveland Browns. Well, they were aided by a touchdown return to start that game and basically never did anything the rest of the game. They beat the New York Giants. That's no great shakes there. And that score was misleading because the Giants allowed them to score late because they were trying to come back and get the ball again. That was truly just a 3-point game. And then they get throttled by the Philadelphia Eagles. And the Raiders are that weird team that show up and win a game every now and then when you least expect it, or lose one like they did to the Carolina Panthers. I actually think there's a chance that the Raiders might win this game outright, James. I'll take the points with the silver and black, who, you know, still have a pulse. I know they're a mess and what have you, but this team can show up every now and then. I tell you what, maybe the Bengals are more of a mess than the Raiders, James.
Well, I'm not going to go that far. I think the Raiders are still there. That franchise is still.
Wait, hold on, Brady.
They think. So I mean, there's. I'll just start at the quarterback position. I'll take Burrow any day and where they stand right here. But thinking about this Bengals team, high expectations coming into this season, but this is not the same offense. We know there were issues with Chase coming in with his contract. Same thing with T. Higgins. T. Higgins is not going to play tomorrow. He has not practiced all week. He's got the quad. You said he's doubtful. He's not going to be their their left tackle. Orlando Brown has not practiced. He is doubtful too. So good luck with having to contend with Max Crosby on that side of the field on Sunday and that pass rush. But I think it's the running game. It's the lack of balance with the Bengals. I think right now you've seen, if you watched Thursday night, last night with the Houston Texans, Joe Mixon right now is obviously he's healthy, but he's also their best offensive player. That kid is running strong. He's running hard. He's running hungry. He is laying a hat. He is the one running with physicality and initiating contact. And I think that's what's missing out of the Cincinnati Bengals team is the fact that you don't have Mixon and the physicality that he would bring to that running game and bringing balance to that offense and opening up the passing game. Now it's just a two-man show with Burrow, who's a tremendous quarterback, and Chase, tremendous wide receiver. But the rest are a bunch of players that just don't have the experience or that kind of dog in them, like we like to say in the NFL. That's what Joe Mixon brings. I think that's a big loss that they've had, and it's showing up on the other side offensively for the Houston Texans right now. That's a big loss. And I think in this spot here, it's the spot again, right? You're talking about the short week, having to travel on the road, big division game on Thursday night at Baltimore. We're getting a touchdown here. And I think that's where if it was O'Connell playing, we talked about this last week. If it was O'Connell playing, I wouldn't want to play it because O'Connell is not one that I trust to be able to find a way to get into the back door. We liked the Raiders in the big number last week against the Kansas City Chiefs. We talked about it. I said, I like Minshew. Minshew's probably going to leave the front door open and put the Raiders behind, turning the ball over, which he did. But he'll find a way in the back end to throw the football down the field. He's not afraid to take chances, make plays. He's a backup. He's got nothing to lose. I think that's the same space here. He may put them behind the 8 ball and turn the ball over early in this game, find a way back. But I like their chances being able to at least come in the back door. Maybe they win. I'm not going to put any money line play here with the Raiders, but in a contest spot plus the 7, I like Minshew to find a way into that back door, Brady.
All right. Well, here's another interesting game, a division game in the Pacific Northwest. The Seattle Seahawks coming off of a loss and really just got pounded by the Buffalo Bills. And the last time we saw the Los Angeles Rams, they were extremely impressive in a win over the Minnesota Vikings. They're the healthiest they've been all year. And Seattle, I don't think this team is very good, but they tend to show up. We talked about that Atlanta game. You know, in random spots, they show up and they look like world beaters. And I think this is possibly one of those weeks where they could show up and everybody's loving the Rams and this resurgence that they have going right now. It feels like a little bit of a trap to just get on board and jump in with the masses and play the Rams here. But on the other hand, James, I just don't know when the Seahawks are going to lay an egg or look really good one week from week to week.
And it's too fragile of a team for me. We saw it last week. They got into the red zone, couldn't get out of the way of the center. He steps on his foot on 4th down, turned the ball over. They couldn't get in twice from inside the 3 into the end zone. And then you saw it just unravel, and you play a good football team, a well-coached football team like the Buffalo Bills. I put the Rams in that same category when it comes to the coaching aspect. I think that they're still finding themselves on the coaching side for the Seattle Seahawks right now. I think the Rams are who they are. We know who they are. And I do like the Rams in this spot, but I agree. Not a spot I want to take them in, but too fragile of a team for me to go the other way and take the home team.
San Diego is home to Wolfpack Hospitality Restaurants, located in beautiful La Jolla. Stop by Cove House, Shore Rider, and Dough Mama Pizzeria on your next trip. Visit Cove House, a top 100 brunch in California, or Shore Rider, serving up margaritas, fish tacos, and a vibe that will make you feel like a regular in no time. For a slice of New York-style pizza with a California twist, it's Dough Mama Pizzeria, where the wings and pizza draw compliments from around the world. Go to wolfpackhospitality.com, and we will look forward to seeing you at Cove House, Shore Rider, and Dough Mama Pizzeria.
Want to gamble like the pros? At LasVegasAdvisor.com, you'll find the world's best how-to books, software, and strategy cards featuring blackjack, poker, video poker, and of course, sports betting, including the Stanford Wong Classic Sharp Sports Betting. Don't forget LVA's Member Rewards coupon book, offering discounts on dining and entertainment, including a buy one, get one for the awesome lobster buffet at the Palms, and more than $700 in gambling-free play, match play, and bonus offers. Up your gambling game today at LasVegasAdvisor.com.
Welcome back into the Las Vegas Football Contest Show presented by Circa Sports and Westgate Las Vegas Superbook. James Salinas and Brady Kannon here with you. Where you can find us, follow us, subscribe, like, all that good stuff. Everything is at footballcontestshow.com. Check us out online, footballcontestshow.com. We switch over to a Circa Survivor perspective here. Which teams are going to just win the game straight up? And we do have a handful of big favorites this week. We've talked about the Baltimore Ravens. You've got the Philadelphia Eagles. The Cincinnati Bengals are a big favorite. You've got the Kansas City Chiefs on Monday night. And then, the New Orleans Saints, a 7-point road favorite at Carolina. Does any part of you, whether it's Survivor or against the number, want to lay it with the New Orleans Saints? Risk $14 million, that top prize in Circa Survivor, on Derek Carr in New Orleans, James.
And the coaching staff for New Orleans, who, when we're talking about the head coach and Dennis Allen, who I think is going to be looking for a new job at the end of this season. No. It's a simple answer. No,
he and Carr are the best guys to bet against. Please stay in New Orleans.
Yeah, right.
Doing a wonderful job.
Yeah. No, there's nothing about the Saints. I mean, that's what's so temperamental about and so week to week and reactive in nature for the NFL is it is a week to week league. And I think sometimes we get, whether you're a fan of the league or a fan of teams and or a sports bettor like we are, and we're a fan of whoever we're betting on, man, it's just, you see how you think about how the Saints started off the season and how impressive they were the first 2 weeks of the season. You're talking about the Carolina Panthers in that first game and completely blitzed the Panthers. Well, here's the rematch come Sunday. But I think the biggest game was the next game at Dallas and just absolutely ran all over the Cowboys. Well, we see now that Cowboys run defense isn't very physical and they're more interested in playing flag football than actual tackle football. And maybe those wins weren't as impressive, at least of the Dallas win. Well, we haven't seen the New Orleans Saints win a game since then, and I know Carr's been out the last few weeks, but he was in for 3 games. He played in that game against Philadelphia, didn't move the football. He played in that game against Atlanta, and it was Atlanta that moved the football up and down the field in that matchup. There's no way on the road here that I know for New Orleans. Sitting there from a contest perspective for Survivor, I can't trust $14 million, not only on the coaching staff, Derek Carr. There's nobody on that team that I'm saying there's the leadership I'm looking for to try to keep me to survive and advance with that much money on the line. It's a big no. It's a hell no, Brady. Absolutely not.
Yeah, I don't really want any part of this game, but I can tell you that the combination of Derek Carr and Dennis Allen are the very worst head coach quarterback combination against the spread in the NFL as a favorite, and especially as a road favorite. Maybe all you contrarian players out there, you want to make up some ground in the Super Contest or the Circa Sports Million, maybe you take the points with the Panthers here and get risky with that one. I can't do it. We aren't at a point where we have to do it, and not any part of me wants to take the points with the Panthers. Tough game here. We've talked about the Ravens, and we like the Broncos catching the points. Will the Ravens win the game straight up? Probably a good shot at that happening, but you hate to try and thread the needle there where you think one team's going to cover, but the other team's going to win straight up. The Chiefs are interesting. They host the Buccaneers on Monday night. Big favorite. They should be able to handle business here, but the Chiefs 5 weeks from now will host the Las Vegas Raiders on Thanksgiving. And a few weeks after that, they will travel to Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers. So do you want to use the Chiefs now, James, when you've got them involved in both holiday weeks in Circa Survivor?
Yeah, that's the hard part, is the quirks that Derek Stevens and crew put in there for this contest. And there's the big challenge now that you've made it this far. And congratulations to everybody that's still left in Circa Survivor that has made it to this point. I think for the Chiefs, do you look at it as survive and advance, or are you starting to think, all right, now we're solid where we're at, and it's just going to be, we're not going to see the carnage that has been unprecedented that we saw in the first 7 weeks of the season? Are the Chiefs a team that you say, I need to have on Thanksgiving or the Black Friday to play against the Raiders? Raiders always play them competitively. We saw that last year on Christmas Day where the Raiders went in and beat the Kansas City Chiefs. And maybe the Chiefs kind of avenged some of that last week, although the Chiefs, we had a backdoor cover with Gardner Minshew and the Raiders in that fourth quarter for the Raiders. But if you're looking from a perspective of survive and advance, I think this would probably be the week that I would say, yes, I would want to do that, because I would definitely want to keep the Packers on my card for Thanksgiving night, where they're going to be playing in Lambeau in the cold against the warm weather team of the Miami Dolphins. So and that's the challenge looking forward and looking ahead. I just think here, let's talk about the point spread here with this game, 8.5 and 9 in these contests in favor of the Chiefs. I'm almost inclined to want to lean towards the dog. I know there's so many injuries for Tampa right now, especially offensively. I don't know where they're going to find any points out of the passing game with this, how decimated they've been at the receiver position. But this just feels like that there's finally going to be a flat spot for the Kansas City Chiefs. Week in and week out, we know defending Super Bowl champion, 2-time defending Super Bowl champions coming into this matchup. And they get everybody's best shot every week. And they have a division game next week against the Broncos, do the Kansas City Chiefs. This just feels like one of those games, again, that we see out of Kansas City that just kind of get through it. Let's move on. We've won our game. We're moving forward. I think they're really just looking to get that number 1 seed. Obviously, everybody does, but that's not a place I want to lay big numbers here, 8.5, 9. But in the Survivor contest, Brady, that's probably the best. If it's not the Bills, and we don't have the Bills on our card, I like the Bills. I think the Bills are the best team that are going to throttle this week. I think they blow out the Miami Dolphins. That would be my best Survivor play. But if second place here and not looking forward and just survive and advance, it's the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yeah, I think there's probably, I don't have it in front of me, how many people have the Bills left. There's only 191 entries remaining in Circa Survivor. Whether you're playing Survivor in Circa or another part of the world, I would be with you. If the Bills are available, I would probably go that direction. And in Circa Survivor terms, I would want to save the Chiefs for those holidays, both Thanksgiving and Christmas. One other big favorite that I think is very interesting and we have yet to discuss, and that is the Philadelphia Eagles at home, laying 7 or 7.5, hosting the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Jaguars were respectable last week. They covered against the Packers, but Green Bay was never really threatened in that game. And you could argue, I believe, that the Jaguars would not have covered the number in that game if Jordan Love would have been healthy at quarterback for Green Bay the entire time. On the other side, you have the Philadelphia Eagles, who have looked outstanding the last couple of weeks. They crush the New York Giants. They crush the Cincinnati Bengals. And you couldn't really have a team in the public eye that has a higher stock right now. People have fallen back in love with the Philadelphia Eagles. And oftentimes, things like that will come crashing down before your eyes. But do I really want to back Jacksonville, who I don't think is a great team either? It feels like Philadelphia should win. But I don't know if this is the direction I would go if I had this team available in Circa Survivor, James.
I wouldn't do it. Looking at the scheduling spot, that's the biggest thing for me. You look where the Eagles are, and coming off big win last week, especially in the second half, dominated the Cincinnati Bengals on the road. But next week, and this is the big piece for me here, next week, and regardless of where the Cowboys are in the standings, we know every year those two games are an absolute bloodbath, and that's where Philadelphia is headed, is into Big D next Sunday against the hated Dallas Cowboys, and then turn around short week to host in division the Washington Commanders, who are right up there in the top of the standings in the NFC East. this is the absolute perfect flat spot. And I think looking at the Jaguars, it's way below expectations with the talent that's on that roster. And I think Doug Peterson, coach for the Jaguars, will be looking for a new gig next year. But this just smells like upset city to me here because of the lack of effort that I think we're going to see out of the Philadelphia Eagles just based on the scheduling spot. I think we'll see a great effort out of the Jaguars and Doug Peterson going back to his old stomping grounds as the head coach there, champion there in Philadelphia. But it just feels like a flat spot from an emotional standpoint for the Philadelphia Eagles with what they have coming up on deck in the next 10 days. I'm actually kind of leaning towards wanting to take the number here in the contest, plus the 7.5 in particular here with the Jacksonville Jaguars. When it comes to Circa Survivor, this one's a dangerous one. It would, for me personally, it'd be not one that I want to put $14 million at risk on at home with Philadelphia Eagles.
Maybe we just talked ourselves into a Circa Sports Million or Westgate SuperContest play there.
For me, I'm talking us into it. Yeah, I know where you stand.
Yeah.
We'll see.
It would be a little bit against the grain, right? We do have to be a little bit unpopular. That's something always to consider for sure. This Jaguars-Philadelphia game was flexed out of the Sunday Night Football spot. In their place are the Colts and the Vikings. We'll touch on that game as well as the Commanders and the Giants when we return on the Las Vegas Football Contest Show.
Looking for your next ultimate golf experience? Discover Valley High Golf Club, a tropical paradise on the Las Vegas Strip, featuring lush greenery, water features, Balinese tropical plants, white sand, and black volcanic rock, creating an enchanting atmosphere. Valley High creates a memorable golf experience for a typical foursome, a group celebrating a bachelor or bachelorette party, or your next corporate outing. It's award-winning golf on the Strip, Vegas style. Book your ultimate golf experience now at valleyhighgolfclub.com.
Welcome back into the Las Vegas Football Contest Show. Brady Kannon and James Salinas with you. A couple games left to break down here, and we switch back to the against the spread perspective. We were talking about the Philadelphia Eagles and the Jacksonville Jaguars, originally scheduled for Sunday Night Football, but they have moved that one out and in with the Indianapolis Colts and the Minnesota Vikings. Minnesota on extra rest here after losing to the Los Angeles Rams. And in Indianapolis, Joe Flacco has been named by head coach Shane Steichen as the starting quarterback. And this is a very interesting development here, James. I think you and I and sports bettors really around the world felt that the Colts had a better chance to win. They were a better bet with Flacco at the helm, and they were more of a bet against with Anthony Richardson at the controls. And nothing against Richardson. I think he's a great kid. He still has a ton of athletic ability, and he may just be fine one day. He's extremely young in his career. But Steichen has said it's time to start winning ball games. We have a chance to make the postseason, and he's going to go with Flacco here. And we saw that line come down. It opened 6.5 or maybe 6. It's down. It went as low as 5. I think it settled in at about 5.5. That's where it is at the contest level. And this Vikings team, James, I don't think they were as good or are as good as what we saw early in the season. And I also don't think they're as bad as what our preseason thoughts were. I think this is a pretty solid team, but I think the first few weeks they were maybe playing above their head a little bit.
Well, and I think they were playing against teams, Brady, that they were able to get up there at home and mix things up at the point of attack and play some poor offensive lines and take advantage of some poor offensive lines. I don't think anybody blitzed more through the first 7 weeks of the season than the Minnesota Vikings, but not just your standard blitz, like showing 8-man fronts and breaking out and not knowing where pressure was coming from and taking advantage of some poor offensive lines. Well, that's not the case here with the Colts. Colts have one of the best offensive lines in the NFL. And then you're going to have a veteran quarterback with Flacco that's seen it all. So there's not going to be anything that's going to keep him and he's going to be confused with. If it was the other side and Richardson was in this game, I would probably say I'd rather lay it with the Vikings than take it with the Colts. In this case here, I like the Colts side. I like the number at the 5, the 5.5. Just thinking about the matchups, and it comes down to matchups in this case here with the passing game that we'll see out of the Colts and what Flacco can do. He looks really confident in the 3 games that he's been the starter and that he's stepped into play and performed with the Colts. The Colts have talent. They have talent, not only the offensive line. We know they can run the football with Jonathan Taylor and find some balance from that standpoint. So it's not to go to old man Flacco and say, look, we need you to throw the ball 40 plus times for us to go win the game. He's not going to turn the ball over and give it to the wrong team. He's going to make the right reads, make the good throws, throw guys open, and there's plenty of talent to throw the football to. And on the other side, I think that's the weakness. We saw it back 10 days ago on that Thursday night game for the Minnesota Vikings at Los Angeles, where Stafford really went after their secondary. We know Stephon Gilmore was a great player. He is not the same player on that corner, but to me, it's the other side. Number 7, Byron Murphy Jr. They absolutely did the Rams last week, picked on him repeatedly. They moved guys in motion to put him and match him up against different receivers and consistently went after him. I think we're going to see the same thing out of the Colts. They're going to exploit the secondary, in particular those corners of the Vikings. And if let's say it is a two-score game with the Vikings and they're ahead, do we trust Richardson to be the one to get in the back door? Absolutely not. Do we trust Flacco to find a way to come into the back door if that's the scenario? Yes, I do. I like our money being there with that 2-score deficit if that's the case. I don't think so. I think this is going to be a field goal game. I like the Colts. I think this is going to be some money line play for me here too once the game gets going on that Colts side. I like the Colts to go in and not only cover that number, potentially win, but I definitely like that number, and I think it should be on both of our contest cards.
What an amazing second half to his career. Joe Flacco, you thought he was retired. He does it with Cleveland last year. He's doing it again with the Indianapolis Colts. I think he's better than a lot of starting quarterbacks in this league. All right, we talked about discussing the New York Giants hosting the Washington Commanders. Daniel Jones, throughout his career, has probably had more success against Washington than any other team in the NFL. This is a rematch. Washington got the Giants by 3 points, if I recall. The Giants did not allow an offensive touchdown in that game. I think it was 6 field goals by Washington to get them the win and the cover. So a rematch here in the division. But I'll tell you what, James, I like the Commanders. This is a completely different Commanders team, new coaching staff, new players. So it's different from the teams that Daniel Jones has had success against in the past. And look at this coaching tandem of Dan Quinn and Cliff Kingsbury. We know they've been very successful so far this season. Dan Quinn, in 2013 and 2014, he was an assistant coach with the Seattle Seahawks, and then he got the head coaching job at the Atlanta Falcons. What did he do that year against his old division, the NFC West? 5-1 against the spread. Okay, so he coaches Atlanta for a few years, gets familiar with the NFC South, and then gets hired by the Dallas Cowboys to be their defensive coordinator. What did Dallas do against the NFC South that year with Quinn as the DC? 4-0 against the spread against the NFC South as a member of the Cowboys coaching staff that year. And then now he is going against the NFC East. He's a coach in the NFC East. He was just a defensive coordinator in the NFC East. He's extremely familiar with this division. And oh, by the way, Kingsbury, his partner in crime, when he was the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons, 7-0 against the number against, yes, the NFC East. These guys own this division. I think that Dan Quinn knows how to beat the Giants every which way on Sunday and whatever. You name the phrase. He knows how to beat this team and Daniel Jones, and I think they get it done again. We've seen the number creep up. I laid the 3.5. It's at 4 now in the live market.
I think for the Giants, it was 7 field goals, Brady, in that week 2 matchup where the Washington Commander, they beat them 21-18. I know it looks like they had 3 TDs, 7 field goals they scored, couldn't get in the end zone. Well, this is that was only week 2 with Washington trying to find themselves offensively. Well, this is a whole different team now. Fast forward 2 months later. I do too. Laying the number, I typically don't want to lay division road favorites, especially over the 3, but where are the points going to come from the Giants? It was pathetic showing on that offense last week, in particular, their blocking schemes. Let's just leave that third stringer Hubbard out there on alone, on an island against TJ Watt and see how that works out. Same thing on the other side. Didn't chip anybody. All these five wide receiver sets that we saw to the Giants repeatedly. I think this gets ugly. And I think for the Giants, sometimes they are more competitive away from Giants. They are away from New York and getting away from that volatile home crowd. I think the same thing happens here. Things will steamroll here. Washington gets ahead, and you're going to see all the boo birds coming out for the Giants fans, putting bags in their heads and throwing stuff on the field potentially. I think I do. I'm with you. Let's put the Commanders on our card. I think they bury the Giants on Sunday.
All right, very good. One more segment to go and a couple more games to break down. We'll reveal all of our picks for all the contests right here. We'll be back in just a moment.
When the football contest crew isn't busy dominating the field and making plays that leave opponents in the dust, they're doing something just as exciting. They're playing My Vegas Slots. It's a top-ranked, free-to-play mobile app that lets you earn valuable real-world rewards from amazing partners like MGM Grand, Bellagio, and Norwegian Cruise Line. You can score hotel stays, great meals, show tickets, and more just for playing. Download My Vegas Slots today from your favorite app store. And if you're anything like Brady, James, and Mike, we know you're going to love it. That's a winning play you won't want to miss.
Welcome back inside the Las Vegas Football Contest Show presented by Circa Sports and Westgate Las Vegas Superbook. Go check out both of those fantastic properties the next time you are down on the Strip in downtown Las Vegas, in Las Vegas, period. Give our friends a look, a couple of the greatest sports books on the planet. All right, it's time to get to our picks for the Westgate Super Contest and the Circa Sports Million. And we are going with the same 5 selections, and they all share the same line in both contests. We will start with the Buffalo Bills laying 6 points against the Miami Dolphins. We're going to take 9 points on the road at Baltimore with the Denver Broncos. We're going to take 7 points with the Las Vegas Raiders on the road at Cincinnati. We will take the 5.5 on the road with the Indianapolis Colts visiting the Minnesota Vikings. And then finally, on the road at New York, we're going to lay it 3 and a hook with the Washington Commanders to make it a season sweep over the New York Giants. And we are going to make those picks again in both the Westgate Super Contest and the Circa Sports Million, and the lines are identical. As far as our Dom DeMarco's Pizza Money prop play of the week, we were on a little bit of a run there, but we lost last week. Kenneth Walker gained about 12 yards in that lambasting that the Buffalo Bills put on the Seattle Seahawks last week. This week, we're going to go with our man, Joe Flacco. And there's the graphic you see there. I was at Dom DeMarco's with a bunch of the guys yesterday for some pizza. Bill Krackomberger, Las Vegas Chris, Lou Finicaro, Dave Ross, and the owner, Mr. Al Scalliott, the owner of Dom DeMarco's. By the way, that Monday night betting party that they have has been shifted to Thursdays at 12 noon. Go grab lunch. I think it's Bill Krackomberger and Steve Fezzik going to be there at Dom DeMarco's next Thursday for some sports betting conversation. Go check that out. But the Pizza Money prop play of the week, Joe Flacco over 1.5 touchdown passes against those Vikings at plus 120. James, you and I both think that Joe Flacco is going to have a big night here on Sunday night.
I do. I think this is where, for Indy, the shot in the arm for this team, their competitors, now they know that Flacco gives them, the players know, they know what's going on in the locker room and on the field. They know who gives them the best chance to win is going to be Joe Flacco, and that's what these guys are here built. And that within the AFC South, that division is not gone. They still have an opportunity, even though they're down in the standings when it comes to the tiebreakers against the Houston Texans. It's still a whole second half of the season to go. So I think it's going to be kind of a shot in the arm for this team to know that at the quarterback position, Flacco is going to give us opportunities to make plays offensively. We don't have to just rely on a run game here, and that helps the defense out too, because they're not having to go back out consistently 3 and out here. I think there's going to be plenty of opportunities for Flacco to find the end zone against a suspect secondary, especially those corners for the Minnesota Vikings. I really like that spot to go to over 1.5 touchdown passes for Flacco.
James, the game of the week. It did not make our card. I think it's a tough one to figure out which side. You can, make an argument for both sides here. The Packers at Lambeau Field hosting the Detroit Lions. Weather looks like it'll be fine, possibly some rain, but temperature is not going to be too cold. The Detroit Lions have been a juggernaut against the spread on the road. Jordan Love, we know he's a little banged up last week. We expect that he'll play. This opened up 3.5 in favor of the Detroit Lions, all the way down to 2.5 in the live market here. I know it's not on our card, but what is your take on this game? Are you going to be involved betting wise?
I probably will be, and I like the road team here with the Lions. This team is they're the more physical team. And I know the Packers very physical, especially at the point of attack, rushing the football. We saw that when Jordan Love was out for those handful of weeks with his knee injury, but he came back quickly. He is not fully healthy. I saw that right away the first game when he came back against the Minnesota Vikings. They came after him and they tested that knee. He was gimpy then. Now he's got the groin injury, and that's what happens. When you have, especially lower body injury, you start to overcompensate elsewhere, and I think that's what's happened to Love. He is not fully healthy 100% with his knee, and now it's starting to permeate elsewhere. Now it's into his groin. What is that going to look like with other injuries that he may be susceptible to, not only throughout this game, but throughout the rest of the season? He's not going to be healthy all season long. I like Detroit here. I think they're going to be very physical. I hope it's rainy. I hope it's ugly out there because that team can rush the football too. I like the Lions in this spot to get a big win on the road in division.
Yeah, I don't know if I'll be involved betting-wise, but I will definitely be watching this one. I look forward to it. Ought to be a great contest in that NFC North division. That is going to do it for this week on the Las Vegas Football Contest Show. Thank you to all our sponsors. Of course, our two title sponsors, Circa Sports and Westgate Las Vegas Superbook. Mike Pritchett will be back next week, we promise, for that player's perspective that we all enjoy so much. Enjoy your picks, enjoy the contest, enjoy the games. That'll do it for us here on the program. Have fun with Week 9 in the NFL, and we'll join you next Friday, Saturday, all weekend long for Week 10 in the NFL.
Thanks for tuning in to the Las Vegas Football Contest Show.
Don't you just love football? God, what a fun sport.
Subscribe today on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts to receive weekly alerts as soon as the show's available. Good luck with your contest selections.
Pay that man his money.
And we'll talk to you next week.